If you've ever played cards or rolled the dice at the casino, there's a good chance you've experienced the dilemma of maybe I should take some of these chips off the table, or maybe I should keep rolling the dice and maybe I'll get lucky. What the heck does that have to do with your home? We'll talk about that in just a minute. So, today we have 643 active single family residential listings between Jackson and Josephine counties. Okay, 643. Over the last 7 days, we saw 124 new listings hit the market, which is actually a little bit lower than we'd seen in the last 2 weeks. But it was spring break, so I mean that's typical for holiday type weeks. Okay, 74 price changes, 34 properties came back on the market, 130 went pending, 103 closed, and 30 were either expired, withdrawn, or canceled. Okay, and so if you look at that whole week, that puts us at as a snapshot of that week, 6.24 weeks worth of inventory. So a little bit more than where we were last week, but again, primarily because of the lower new listing activity because of spring break. Typical, we would expect to see that. Okay, so let's come back to this gambling scenario, right? And this is what I characterize as the seller's dilemma. And this is what I've had a lot of conversations with people about, homeowners who are considering selling, because they're looking at the fact that, number one, your home value is pretty high, right? Probably as high as it's ever been. And so it's worth thinking about maybe taking some of those chips off the table. And so the dilemma is looking at three possible scenarios, okay? Do you cash out at this all-time high, but on the downside have the risk of maybe not being able to find a place that is as affordable as you would like? Okay, that's behind door number one, right? Behind door number two is you could wait until the market conditions change and maybe it's a better time to buy. Okay, but if that's the case, then the downside is it's probably not as good a time to sell if it's a better time to buy, because buyer and seller markets, you can't really have both at the same time. It's one or the other. Okay, we're in a seller's market, so it's not a good buyer's market. If it's a buyer's market, it's not going to be a good seller's market. So which one do you want, right? Okay, and the third, behind door number three, is basically just do nothing. Okay, so it is quite the dilemma, right? And I want to explain a few things about that to help you kind of process this whole conundrum. So in a situation like this, what I like to do is remove all the speculation, okay? And behind door number two is a lot of speculation. And door number two is let's wait till the market conditions improve, okay, for buying. Right? Because we don't know if that'll ever happen, frankly. We like to think it will. A lot of people think it will. But the reality is that it's speculative. Okay? So when making big decisions like this, I think it's important to remove all of the speculation and just look at the facts. Okay? We're not thinking about what could happen, might happen, is likely to happen. We're just thinking about what we know today. Okay? And what we know today is that, number one, your house is worth probably more than it's ever been worth. Okay, it's probably at its all-time peak. Number two, we know exactly what the market conditions are today. We know that there's ample inventory. We know that interest rates are pretty high, and we know all of the other conditions that exist in today's market, both the housing market and the economic, bigger picture in general. Right? We know all those things today. And number three is that we have no idea what the actual future holds in any of those areas. We don't know anything about whether the market is going to continue to climb for 5 years, and we don't know if it's all going to come crashing down tomorrow. We have no idea. Okay, so those are the facts that we really need to consider in this situation. So the way I look at this is actually pretty simple. Okay, if you've been in your home for more than 2 years, you've most likely seen massive gains. Okay, and those gains just don't mean really anything unless you actually take them off the table. And if you've ever played cards or craps at the casino, you know that this is kind of the scenario where you've done well, you've gone on a heater, you've got this big pile of chips in front of you, and you're staring at it thinking, like, damn, that was pretty cool. I did pretty well. But do you take those chips off the table, or do you keep rolling the dice? And a lot of people keep rolling the dice. I mean, why wouldn't they, right? They're having fun, they're in the moment, all is well, until it's not. Because what happens is those people tend to overlook the facts, okay? Remember we just talked about the facts? They tend to overlook the facts of their scenario, which is that the odds of the game are actually always in favor of the house. And for some, that turns out to be a good decision, right? They continue to stay and play and they make more money. But really, I would characterize that more as a lucky decision than a good decision, okay? For most, they wish they would have taken those chips off the table and realized those gains when they were thinking about it. Because remember, the house always wins. So here's the difference between casino games and the real estate market, okay? One's made for entertainment, and the other is made for your financial security, for your family, for your life, okay? And do you want to keep rolling the dice and maybe get lucky with all that? So here's my advice. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where you lose by taking some of those chips off the table. So here's my advice. It's hard to imagine a scenario where you lose by taking some of the chips off the table when the market is like this, okay? When you've got all-time high home value and all that sort of stuff, okay? Hard to imagine a scenario where you lose, okay? Could you get lucky and continue to win? Sure, okay? But if luck is what you're after, go buy a lottery ticket, okay? Don't gamble with the equity position on your home, okay? The conservative financial part of my brain says cash out. Maybe you could even make enough on the sale of your property to pay off all of your debt, to pay off any credit cards, medical debt, student loan debt, car payments, all of that. Maybe you could pay all that off and still have 20% left to put down on another home. Okay? If that's the scenario that exists, think about what could that do for your life? How could that change your life? Okay? What would that do for your cash flow? If you didn't have all those other payments to be made, how much pressure would that take off of you? Okay? Would that make things more enjoyable? Would you have less stress? Okay, those are some of the things to be thinking about here. And it's hard to imagine, like I said, a scenario where you lose given all of that. Okay, and I know what you're thinking. You're probably wondering to yourself, okay, that's all well and good, but what do we actually buy? Okay, if we sell, what do we actually buy? Well, good question. Buy a house that gives you an opportunity to create additional equity through improvement. Okay, and so if you found something that, maybe didn't have the best curb appeal, or needed some cosmetic updating. Those are the types of homes where you could get into them with a good equity position and create even more equity, sweat equity, and those sorts of things, and set yourself up for an even bigger win down the road. So you could take some chips off the table and bank a win right now. You could pay off all this debt and everything if you have any, and you could create your position in a new home for the future where you have an even better financial position in it. Okay. And so that's something that I think is worth thinking about seriously, because those homes are out there. Like, those do exist, and I'd be happy to help you find one. If you would ever like to run those numbers together, if I can help you, we can sit down and go over what your home may sell for in this market today. And I can show you some examples of other homes that are out there that you could do what I just described. I'd be more than happy to do that with you. So send me a message on social media, or call me or text me. My number's right here, 541-954-7758. That's all we got for you today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel by clicking on the link down here below. And also check out the full version of the newsletter so you can see all my favorite listings and some of the buyer needs that we have. So have a good one. We'll see you next week.